What are we doing today? Well, we're going to be casting some brass. Now, you'll have to excuse my lockdown haircut at the moment. It's been a long couple of months. Now, one thing you might not notice at the moment is my eyes twitching, and my eyes are not open quite the same amount. Another symptom of MS has struck recently, and that is facial twitching. I've already got some optic neuritis, which means there's a little bit of loss of vision in the left eye, which I'm now told is permanent. Up until now, most of my symptoms of MS haven't been really visible to other people or to anybody just looking at me, aside from the fact that I kind of walk a bit funny now. So I'm not sure if this one's going to be a permanent one or if it's going to make a full recovery, but that's some update. I'm also in an incredible amount of pain this morning, which is not visible. So if I'm not as enthusiastic as usual, that's why. So let's get on with this and show you around the workshop a little bit, and yeah, we'll see how we go. Alright, well, we're going to be casting brass today, so I have some of my leftovers from the last cast, which wasn't the greatest success, but it wasn't a total failure either. We will be using blue tack, probably not this particular piece, as the pouring sprue, because it actually does hold up to molten brass with a little bit of charring. And it's a damn sight cheaper than anything else. We have a couple of buckets of green sand hanging out over there. Now, what's the first thing we need to do today? Well, I'm going to have to get down my new belts because I've clogged this one full of plaster during experimentation, and that has been on there for probably about 6 years. I haven't done a whole lot with the linisher. And this is a design my father made after looking at one that he wanted. He went home and designed it and built it. So yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. Now, what's next? Let me have a quick think here. Yes, that's what I had to do. I have to clean up my work area. I only cleaned up this area a few weeks ago, and I haven't done much in here, but everything ends up getting stacked on top of the laser cutter. So all of this has got to get cleaned up. So I think I'll do some of this off camera, and I will sift through all my junk pile up here of projects to be, and probably end up fishing out my belts that are hiding behind there. And I think that CRT probably needs to go. So I'll put that out of the junk pile. That CRT is staying because that's an integrated CRT for an Amstrad. I think it's a CPC 6128 off memory with CF2 floppy drive. So some stuff's got to go. And anyway, let's get this belt changed, and we'll be right back. Right, so I've cleaned out a hole and I found my belts, and I found something else. This is a powered glider. I had planned to turn that into a UAV project at some point, but that's unlikely to happen at this stage now. I just realised the tailplane has busted off that too. So I'll find the tailplane. That might get put up for free. It didn't cost me anything. It was donated to me. So I'm going to pass that on to somebody else who's more interested. So yeah, now I've got to get some of this stuff back up in that hole. So, update. Right as the plane's flying overhead, I found the tailplane. Alright. There's a whole bunch more junk up there. I've got to not get distracted with the other junk. So let's keep moving. Well, today seems to be an aircraft day. The RAF are busy at what they're doing. So that actually sounds like a reasonably big aircraft. I would get up and check, but I'm likely to fall over if I do. Not uncommon here. We're in an approach lane. So let's clear up all this. This is going to be what I'm planning on casting for my financial manager's birthday that's coming up in a couple of days. So yeah, we're going to cast this And this is our pouring sprue, our vent areas up the side here. You can probably see if you can't see the cursor. And I forgot to include a couple of pieces in here. These two bits. Because I'm going to need to glue them to the top of this. So I get a little bit more hydraulic pressure in the mold. I was going to cast the mold boxes like I did last time, but I've got a different idea for that. So I'm just going to cut this bit for now. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to make the boxes. So let's get this saved and sent off over to the laser cutter. We are going to go, rather than import that, we are going to use previous plot settings, which should set everything up loosely right. We'll go find a piece of timber and shove it in the laser. Everybody's home in lockdown at the moment, largely because of all the activity. Now, we need to bring this 220mm across, I think. No, I had to do 220 from the top and 300 and something, I think 320, make it 330 from the back corner. I'll just confirm that with my trusty measuring tape. We'll be back. I'm making a couple of changes at the moment today. Normally I use about 38% speed for the raster cutting, but I'm going to go to about 30 today just because I want a little bit deeper, because I've got some fairly coarse sand grains, and I'm hoping that'll give me a little bit more definition. Smart Act, yes. Alright, and our vector settings should all be pretty well right. We might bump that down just 0.1%. just to help it get a clean finish through. Alright, let's get this done. Alright. So the next thing we need to do is use our dodgy double adapter, turn our exhaust fan, and we've got our air line in the bottom here. Need to give it a little bit of air. I really need a proper pressure regulator here. Give it a bit of air, we'll come back over, and we will start our cut job. Alright, and that is going to sit there and do some raster cutting. I would stick the camera in there today, but effort is not something I'm having a great deal of a time with. So I'll let that do its job, and then we'll get our molds made. Alright, so my master cut okay, but the actual detail didn't engrave out of it. And I think I know why. One of the cheap tricks I use to get these things into AutoCAD is I'll run them through Adobe Illustrator first and convert them to a vector like an SVG. Then I'll bring them into AutoCAD, explode them twice, get rid of all the hatching, get rid of the second outline, and then rehatch them. Well, this time I thought the hatches look so clean, I'll just bring them across. Well, something about Adobe Illustrator, when it does hatching, is not compatible with the laser, so I have to redo this hatching and rescale all of this. So I'm going to do that, get it back in position, and then I'll just try and redo just the rastering in the same position, and we'll save our piece. Right, so this little conundrum just took me about an hour and a half to figure out. Adobe Illustrator, when it converts an image to a vector, it does an outer and an inner line. And in AutoCAD they're stacked right on top of each other, and that gives the hatching command an absolute nightmare. So I had to go inside to use my machine with 12 cores, and it completely froze up until I screwed around with a bunch of settings, optimized everything, got it actually working again. I was about ready to scrap this project because of that, but persistence pulled through. So let's plot this to our laser and redo just that little bit of stuff. Oh, and of course it hasn't remembered any of the settings. Yay. Alright, time to figure that out. Alright, Alright, we ended up with 2 finished products. Now, I realized something, that I'd made a slight mistake here. When I was planning on making these molds, I'd actually designed a little groove to slot these into. Not the end of the world, I'll have to do that manually. Alright, now I need to find some super glue and stick on these bits. And I need to make my mold frames. And I need to eat lunch. And my body is asking things of me I don't want to take the time to do. I want to finish this project. So I'm going to get some super glue, then we're going to make some molds. Alright, time to glue on some packers. And I understand there is some sort of sporting team in the USA called Packers. This is no relation to that. These don't have to be bonded very strongly, just enough to stay in place while I pack sand around everything. Alright, that should create a nice big cavity that I can pour directly into. That should be good. Now let's make our sand frames. Alright, so for sand frames, I have some old bed frame timber, namely this stuff. I need to trim that roughly to the size that's useful, and I need to trim off these bits with all these stupid staples in there. So I'm going to stick this in my vise, trim some ends off, and we'll be back in a moment. We have 8 pieces of wood. Now to chuck them on the belt sander, clean them up, put some screws in. They should be about the right size for that. Alright, let's keep going. And normally this method would call for talc to lubricate this section of the mold. I'm going to use some graphite powder, only because experience says this works much more reliably. I'm going to get my finger in here, which you can't see obviously. I'm going to rub a bit of graphite powder right into that design. I'll do this a little bit more off camera, then we'll start packing some sand in. We're up to the sand packing stage. Now this stuff is decidedly coarse stuff, but I think last time I packed in some of the bentonite clay they had on the top, it just fragmented out, so it didn't work out very well at all. So we'll try and pack this in nice and hard this time. This could be a little noisy. So I'm going to pack all this in and talk in between ramming stages. Got a bit in the bottom here. I'm going to wait till I get quite a layer up. We'll be back in a few minutes. Energy's failing a bit now, so sorry if the descriptive language has dropped off a little bit. But I've got this packed in fairly tight. pretty soon we'll remove that. Now, normally I would put some timber over the back of that, but today I'm going to use a bit of sand on the back of that. I'm going to use a sand mold I've already used before as the backing, and we're just going to clamp that directly on the rear. If you can see what's going to happen here. Clamp that on the rear, and that should provide some heat resistance for the back, which we're not too worried about the cosmetic appearance of that. And I'm struggling to talk properly at the moment, so it could be that I have to take a rest. Anyway, the next step for me here, I'm going to pack this down a little bit more smoothly, and then we will basically take this out, pack the two together in the vise, and then we'll start melting some brass. Let's see if I can make a mistake. Alright. Blue tack probably wasn't the best choice for this. Maybe I can reduce its pressure by peeling it out the back like one of those removable wall tabs. This is the bit I didn't really stop to consider too much. So let's see if we can exploit one of its advertised properties, being easy cleanup. Alright, so we can get this out. Now, is it in frame before I mess it up? I want to make sure we get all of this properly in frame. Try and loosen it a little bit. Just gently as we go. Seeing some sand popping up here. I'm going to try and lift this up straight if I can. Nope, that whole section of sand is going to lift up by the looks. If we're lucky, we can just separate that out off the corner with this pen. Still going to come out in one big chunk. This is why I like being able to laser cut my molds, because you don't have any of this trouble. We'll be back in a bit when the pressure of the camera is off. It's out. I don't know how much detail is in there. I really can't tell. I'll sort of have a look at this. There are some hunks of sand stuck in the detail here, so I'm going to hazard a guess and say that this probably isn't going to work. So at this point, rather than go through the process of casting it and seeing that it's failed, I think I'm going to have another crack. I'm going to poke all this sand out, break it up, and I'm going to laser cut another one of these. And I think today I'm about done for. This might be a tomorrow job. I think I've reached the limit of my concentration and my energy, as happens with multiple sclerosis. So yeah, this is going to have to be a two-part video, or maybe you'll see the second part somewhere about now. But anyway, I'm going to go take a break, and I'll be back a little bit later. Right, so about 6.5, nearly 7 hours have passed. I've been doing a lot of thinking. So I've decided I was going to go with a much more simple design, and I was going to go away with it, or do away with these side vents. I don't think I'm going to need them. Now, crucially, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to stick this on top, right in that slot there in the relief that I've just laser engraved. I'm going to glue that on. So we'll have a little wolf motif in there. And that should create loads of relief, and then I can sand that down till it's an acceptable height with the end product. And I think that should be, hopefully, a better end result. Now, I was going to assemble the back one of these things, but I think I'm just going to continue with the method I had of using previously used sand on the back. By that I mean I'm going to use this block with a bit of fresh sand compacted in. That will be the back of my mold. So yeah, probably in future I'll make two molds that clip together, but for this, because there's no actual features to align on the back, I think it'll be just fine. So let's get packing sand in. So the nerves have set in. I now have an audience, namely the person who's going to get this. So I do have to do a little bit of cleaning up here because the bits that I need to relieve are actually sticking up on the bottom here. So we're going to shave off those inner bits because that will prevent this from sitting level. And that feels nice and level there now. So we'll put a drop of glue in the relief and hope it doesn't stick in position before it's actually where I want it. Because otherwise we'll have to start again, which means firing up the laser and the air compressor and everything all over again. I didn't make spares, which I probably should have. Alright, I'll hold that for a few seconds and we'll stick some graphite on that. Right, so I've got the mould, or the master, mostly assembled. Time for some graphite powder. And I'm going to do this before I put it in the mould this time. It was very hard to do this last time. And I need to get on the side so that it actually comes out and doesn't take bits of sand with it. Which is one of the reasons I've done away with the side vents. It's largely because that was pulling up little quadrants of sand. I might need to get a toothbrush into this to get this stuff really where we need it. I don't have one handy. I do have a rag though. It's a little bit more effective than my fingers. Graphite powder is messy stuff. It does the job. We just need this not to stick to sand, and we want any stray super glue to soak up some graphite. Might as well do the back, although that's not going to matter too much. Alright, cool, I'll get that in the mould. Position that right and sprinkle a bit of sand in here. Normally I should probably sift this stuff, but I think by the time I'm finished packing this, it's probably going to be alright. I'll just work it into my hands and break up the clumps as I go. With a packer. Right. A little bit as I go. This could get noisy because the camera stupidly is on the same platform as the bit that I'm packing. So we might skip this bit on camera because you've seen it with the last one. And we'll be back when we've got it finished. Now, this is the point where you hear me swear and I have to bleep it. So, let's flip over. It looks like it's moulded in there relatively well. Now, I wonder if I can get this out. So, tap it all gently. I'll see if I can lift it out with a good old Leatherman again. In fact, I might actually use back plate out of a computer and just try and lift this up. So I messed it up like 3 times. Very simple basic physics. If you've got sand and you've got nothing under it and you push on sand, it's going to fall through. So I've learnt that lesson the hard way a few times, but I did take the time to recut another one because I broke it twice. I've actually shaved the wolf head down just a little bit so that it comes out of the sand a little easier, and I'm going to graphite powder this. And then when I flip it over, I'm actually going to drop some super glue on and stick a piece on the back of it so that I can lift it out of the sand more gently. I'm also going to pack a fair bit more sand in behind it. So, here goes nothing. Super glue is not entirely set yet, but I'm going to get everything wriggling a little bit first. Right, that should let some air out at the very least, and we've got 2 channels in case one gets blocked. Alright, let's not screw with this any further. Right, so normally I would be warming up the furnace at this point, but I just don't want to cock anything up this time. So I'm prepping my blue tack, which is quite cold. This is recycled stuff. I think we're going to use a fresh one, being as this one is actually potentially going to be my first actually worthwhile brass cast. I say potentially. It's probably worth the $2 for a new pack of blue tack. If I've got the dexterity for grabbing wax paper tonight. Alright. Okay, time to get the furnace hot. Right, time to make the gods of electricity angry. We'll hear it clicking and go buzz in a minute. I've got some stuff to clean out of this too. So where's my workshop rag? The coils in the furnace have loosened up since I first got it. Now ignore the radioactive sign on here. I did once have some americium stored in here. Now I have chrome finish ones. I'm probably not going to use those. Let's bring our light across a bit. They're a bit noxious when they get hot. So I'm going to use all these ones with cracked necks and stuff. These are all 38 specials. I'm going to use the ones that are just a nice copper wash. Oh, 17 HMR round. Well, it's got no primer, so yeah, that can go in, why not? Alright, so we're about 1080 on the furnace. My brass shells have started to drop down on the top. I've got my safety gear on. I'm just waiting for it till it gets all the way to 1100, and we'll get it nice and liquid. It feels nice and liquid there. I want it nice and fluid, so yeah, we're definitely hot in there. So we'll be back in a moment.
Got a recording, by the way.
That's okay. You're not going to grab a photo, or you're going to grab it? Alright, it's all good. You're going to get it on film.
I can try to. Let's do a live focus.
Okay.
Can I stand over here safely?
Yeah, yes, I'm going to pour that way and then back. So make sure you got water nearby if you need it.
Because I'm far back against the walls I can get.
Yeah, you should be right. Okay. Time to pour. You right?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to pour this. Okay. A good grip up here. Okay, come on. Alright, well, it came out the vent hole, that's a good sign. And let's put out our flames down here a bit. Definitely a chunk of brass down there. Alright. That went relatively well. Get a bit of light over on this now. More on the floor so it doesn't reignite. Alright, and I'll leave my graphite crucible in there to cool down slowly. Alright. Cool, we'll come back and check on this in a bit. Alright, let's see if we can separate these two. A fair bit of metal came out the vent hole, so I hope we've done it alright. Well, it looks like it's come through all the way. in the vent, a little bit of air in the vent, but it looks like it's cleaned all the way through. Let's see if we can get this out. We'll peel it up. Alright, dig that bit out. Well, it's solid and looks like the whole mould has filled. This is kind of exciting. It could have actually worked for a change. Ah, okay. We might have had our first real success here. It's very hot, but we've actually got a wolf head showing through, and that is too hot to hold on to. So, it's alright, you can get up and have a look. Things have cooled off a little bit now. You can see it actually has come out in a satisfactory fashion. The detail in the eye and the ear might get lost in sanding. We'll find out. I might just have to be gentle with the sanding. Now we're going to try and separate this from the top. I had a quick touch up on the belt sander. My sanding method kind of left a bevel on it. I'll have to fix that. We're sort of losing a bit of detail on the ear and the eye. I don't think that's a huge problem, though I could probably add that in later on. I've sanded the back till all the blemishes are gone. I've got to clean up the edges a bit, and then I'll take some needle files to this bit here and we'll drill the hole, and then we might give it some wet and dry and then maybe some polish. Bit of work to be done tonight. I don't have the space left to record that whole process in time lapse, but I'll show you each step along the way. Alright, it's down to needle file stage, and these are vintage needle files. I put them probably something like 20 years ago. Now, I think I have a triangular one in here. Might be the one we want. I've got to try and shape that top bit. Oh, this is going to take a while. Yeah. Definitely going to take some time. Right, so this is after some cleaning up work. We're getting there, and we've got our top shaped a little bit. I'm going to see how we come up on the buffing wheel. Although I should probably do a bit of wet and dry on this first. Smooth it out a little bit to get a better finish. So we'll try it on the wet and dry paper, and then we'll hit the buffing wheel. So like 3 months later, we actually have a hole all the way through the top. Now it needs a bit of a clean up under some hot water and a bit of a scrub with a toothbrush. Get some of this buffing compound. So if there's one thing I learnt today, is that circuit board cleaner is the answer to my problem with getting buffing compound off. It actually works wonderfully. I've been looking for something for that for ages. I'll give it another dose before I hand this over. But now it's time to put a ring on it. I would use my usual trick of soldering a piece of copper wire through, but I don't think I want to be that cheap today. I'm going to take a spring and take one of the loops off the top of this, and I have a pre-damaged set of flush cutters here for the task. And we should be through. Right, and we have a nice little spring steel ring on there that should be quite tough. Alright, I'm going to give this a final clean up. It isn't quite as polished as highly as I would like, but we're going for the rustic look a little bit anyway. But we'll give this a final clean up, and we'll find some sort of a chain to put it on. I think my wife's got some kind of an idea what she might want to put that on there. Anyway, we'll be back. Alright, we're going to hand this over and see what the reaction is.
Oh, wow. That is really, really beautiful. Wow.
Right, so I'm pretty well out of storage space, and this has been an epic challenge to get this far with brass. In fact, there's probably a year's worth of research and effort and learning and saving up of money to get to this point. So we have an acceptable result. well, I guess the purpose was as a gift, and the gift has been well received. So, job's done, I guess. Yeah. So I am going to rest. I am in heaps of pain. My eye is still twitching. It's been doing that for more than a week. Pretty sure it's neurological and it's permanent. So I'm going to get some sleep. And it's nearly midnight. It's been about 9 a.m. till about midnight in bits and pieces, and having to rest in between. Pretty exhausting. I don't know how I'm going to go trying to find mainstream work. I don't think that's really an option anymore, but the government says I've got to keep trying, so that's what I'm going to do. Alright, I'll see you all in the next video. Let me know what you reckon. If you've got any tips on how I can improve this, it would be great too.